Hello, welcome to session 4 of Unit 6. Here we are going to look at graphical determination of optimal combination. So we want to combine the two geometrical concepts of the budget line and the indifference curve to enable us explain when a consumer is purchasing the combination of two products that maximizes the total utility obtainable with his or her income. This technique will lead us to the determination of consumer equilibrium using indifference curve analysis. By the end of the session, we believe that you should be able to use different indifference curves to identify which combination of the two products that maximizes the total utility of the consumers. And you should also be able to explain the relationship among the concepts of marginal rates of substitution, ratio of marginal utilities, and ratio of prices of two products. So let's start. It's going to be a short session, so please pay attention. Now, given the preference of the consumer, the actual level of his consumption will be determined by his real income, and that is to determine the consumer's feasible level of consumption and the quantities of X and Y that he will consume. We superimpose his or her budget line on his indifference or her indifference curve. Now I'm going to draw it and talk to the diagram. So I have here, we have commodity Y and commodity what? X. We have our budget constraints line. The indifference curve, I'm going to draw three different ones. Alright, okay. Here I'm going to name W. Here I'll say this one will be P. Here I will say R. Here I will say X. And I'll name this B as we already named the other one AB. So A here for the equilibrium where the indifference touches the budget. We have Y1, we have X1. We have our origin. Now let's talk to the diagram. So since the consumer spends all his or her income on goods X and Y, he or she is limited to the combinations line on line AB. For point R, P, and S, there are three of the infinite number of feasible combinations available to the consumer on the line AB. The consumer actually maximizes his satisfaction when he attains the highest feasible point on the indifference curve. The highest attainable indifference curve is the one which is tangential to the budget line. So we will look at the tangents, and that's where we look at the equilibrium. So the consumer is in the equilibrium at the point where the budget line is tangent to an indifference curve. You can look at the second indifference curve or the indifference curve between the three indifference curves. You can see that with that one we have a tangent to the budget line. And we can say that P is the point of maximum satisfaction where y1 of y and x1 of x, or let's say with y1 of y and x1 of x. So at the point of tangency, we look at the marginal rate of substitution MRS, which will be equal to px over what? Py. So the consumer equilibrium is defined by the conditions that the marginal rate of substitution of x for y is equal to the ratio of their respective prices. Recall that from the previous session we said something like MUX over PX should be equal to MUI over PY up to the, say, the last commodity, say commodity N. So here what we are saying is we can either do this, or we'll say the MUX over MUY will be equal to Px over Py. This establishes the MRS approach, the marginal rate of sub MUY. Yes, MUY. This establishes the marginal rate of substitution approach. Note that points R and S represent attainable combinations of X and Y, but it yields less utility looking at the diagram. So, as is evidenced by the fact that they are at the lower part of the indifference curve. Point W would entail more utility than P. However, it requires greater income. So we have to get an increase in income to have a new budget line so that we can get to point what W than the 5,000 Ghana cedis we used in the previous session, that is the session 3. This brings us to the end of this particular session. The next session we are going to talk about how to derive demand curve, the derivation of the demand curve using utility. So derivation of demand curve under the theory of consumer behavior, that is under still utility. Okay. So see you in that session. Until then, I would say thank you.